Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. Visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Okay, so today we have got the shoulders off the mule deer that I harvested about a week ago, and continuing on the the difference between the different edge finishes. Not so much level of sharpness. They're both completely sharp, okay? But one of them has got a 325 grit edge off of a DMT diamond stone, 325 grit edge with micro bevels, and then the other one with the blue tape on it has got a King 6000 grit waterstone edge on it, with the Murray Carter method, where you stone strop a couple of times, once you've got your edge the way you want it, knock off the burr and a piece of soft wood, and then come back and stone strop again 2 times on each side, until you feel like it's sharp. Both of these edges, so the 325, I will let you know right now, the 325 grit diamond edge is my all-time favorite edge. Okay, for me, I could that edge I could work with for the rest of my natural days and not ever feel like I was missing anything. The 6000 grit edge, I have been using it on my everyday carry belt knife lately for about the last year and a half, and it's not a bad edge. I kind of getting used to it and certain aspects, but one thing that I have not put these two edges to test with. Remember, I've got that that series with the Opinels, where I took 3 pretty much identical Opinel knives. I sharpened one to a 325 grit diamond edge, one to a 6000 grit waterstone edge, and then took another 6000 grit waterstone edge and then put it on my shaving strop, so green chromium oxide, which is about 30 or 60,000 grit, it's up there, and then linen, and then leather. So this is the edge that I shave my face with, a couple times a week, just on a pocket knife instead of a straight razor. I only have 2 shoulders, 2 deer shoulders, so we're only going to do the 325 grit edge and the 6000 grit edge. So the idea with this video, pretty much I am breaking these shoulders down. We're going to keep the shanks, and we're going to keep them a little bit different this year. We're going to do a bone-in shank on these front legs, and then I'm going to put them in a Dutch oven and slow cook them, probably the dead of winter. Okay, so like late January, when the snow is deep and it's cold, and the days are starting to kind of lengthen out a little bit, but not really a whole lot, and so just about the perfect time to do a nice comfort food like that, where you take them out in the morning, or take them out the night before, to get them thawed out, and then brown them up that morning in the Dutch oven here on the stove, and then take that Dutch oven out into the shop and then set it on the wood stove and let it cook all day long, rotating them every now and again until dinner that night. So that'll be and I'm going to test and see if leaving the bone in, I think it's going to boost that flavor, that mule deer flavor, even more than if I had the shanks out. The rest of the shoulders, I am breaking them down. We're going to grind them up for burger so that we can use them in spaghetti, lasagna, maybe even a stir fry sort of a deal, goulash, whatever you use ground meat for. And talking about all that, you can tell it is almost lunchtime, and right quick before we get to cutting, in that Dutch oven, pretty much the same sort of a deal. This is a 2-quart by Stansport. I've got a cottontail from the end of last rabbit season, and a couple of things of cup of noodle soup. Vance is out finishing skinning his deer right now, so when I get done shooting this video and he comes in after he's got done skinning his deer, why then that's what we're having for lunch. So I suppose I better get to it. Okay, so we are going to use the 325 grit edge first. Both of these knives are made out of 1095 high carbon steel from the same supplier. Same guy heat treated them. Not the same day. This is a newer knife than that one is, but they're both really good knives. Like I said, they just got different edge finishes. Let me put you down, make sure that you're on camera. Yep. Okay, so this was a yearling doe mule deer. We're going to start by taking out the back side of the shoulder bone here. Bring it up until we get to right about there, and then we can go down. Like I said, this is all being ground up for burger, so we're not gonna worry about keeping our cuts really nice. So that was the back side of the shoulder blade. So now we're gonna get the front side of the shoulder blade. This cut of meat right here, if you weren't grinding it up, you could use for like stir fries, tips with rice with cream mushroom soup cooked into it. And it has been a year since I did this. Okay. So now the front half of this is pretty much done. We'll come up in here and scoop up this last couple of morsels here. This 325 grit edge is very aggressive. You can always think about the grits of the edge as in like number of teeth. Okay, so I've got a video about what is a toothy edge, where I compare an edge to a bandsaw blade. Alright, so now we're going to come up in here. Use this with this portion of your knife because you're going to be contacting bone and such, and so it's probably going to dull your knife up a little bit. Look for where that joint is. See how it's moving here? So we're going to want to come down through here. And pretty much bones, they won't completely wreck your edge, but they will dull it. Okay, so we're going to leave that right there. Now this would be like your humerus bone, like this bone right here. So anyway, so the 325 grit edge is a very aggressive slicing sort of an edge. So you can see I'm doing an awful lot of, back and forth like that. Okay, so now we can come up in here and get the little pieces that we missed. There. Not really enough to grab a hold of there. The back of your scapula here. This is where having a flexible knife comes in handy, because what I'm doing is I'm putting the point in there and then I'm flexing the blade, and that's causing the blade to slide right along the back side of that bone. Kind of like a fillet knife sort of a deal, but not quite as flexible as a fillet knife. Not the way I make them anyway. Okay, I think I might do something a little bit different. I think I might go ahead and cook these up for the dogs. Probably just fire them, stick them in the oven. You know, I usually break this off, or just cut this off. Actually, we'll just go ahead and cut that off. And we'll just do the shanks like normal. I think I might go ahead and cook up some bones for the dogs this year. Now, this meat right here at the end, you'll notice that it's kind of a different color. It's kind of a dark color, whereas the rest of the meat is kind of a lighter shade of red. This right here, what that's from is when you hang them, I mean, you know, you can do it however you want, but I typically hang them with the hide on. And what that does is that hide protects the meat from getting dried out. So like you really wouldn't want to leave like a steak or something like that in such a way, but on a cooking method like with the shanks, where it's going to be a long, slow cook anyway, and you know, I mean, everything's going to, you know, kind of melt in that pot. A little bit of dried out flesh there isn't really going to hurt nothing. Okay, so that one was a 325 grit edge. Now we're going to go with the 6000 grit edge. This is the, now everything's just going to be just backwards the way it was because, you know, this is the other side of the animal. I believe this is the first time I've ever used a 6000 grit edge on a boning knife. Like I said, I'm pretty partial to that 325. My guess is that, well, it's not going to be as aggressive. So all the other cuts that I typically do with that 6000 grit edge, instead of using as much of a slicing motion, I ended up using a little bit more pressure, and you don't have to slice near as much. I mean, the teeth are still there, and they still will slice, but they won't slice as deep for the same amount of pressure as what the 325 grit teeth will. So on this one, we are going to start, well, we'll go ahead and start the other way. We'll just go it the other way around. Okay, bring that up into there till you hit the edge of that scapula. Bring that out. Now we'll go on the face of it. This knife right here, I've used it quite a bit longer, and so it's got a narrower point, so it gets into little bitty places a little bit nicer. Okay, we got that part done. Now let's go ahead and get the arm muscle here. So you bring this in, like I said, use that with the base of your blade, because if you're going to dull it up, that would be the section that you would want to dull. One thing I don't know that I mentioned or not, but to keep your cutting board from kind of slip sliding all over the place, because these big old HDPE cutting boards, they're really nice, but they tend to warp, and so they're not flat. So get yourself a towel and get it wet, you know, in the sink. Wring out most of the water, lay your towel on your counter first, and then lay your cutting board down, and then it won't rock anymore. I learned that back when I was a kid. I worked as a ship's engineer on a seismic vessel mapping the ocean floor. And that's what we did with our dinner plates. You know, when we were in rough weather and the boat kept rocking back and forth. So you'll see it on TV, you know, where you're, especially like on the cartoons, where somebody's eating on a boat, and you know, they take a bite and then their plate slides to the other table, and then their buddy takes a bite and then it slides back over. Yeah, that sort of a deal. I mean, we never shared meals like that because we didn't have to. We put wet paper towels on the table before we sat down to eat. That's my texter. Somebody's texting me. Might be Vance. He might be done skinning his deer by now. You know, this edge is working pretty good. I mean, that first couple of cuts, it, you know, my hand realized that, hey, we're working with a finer grit edge here. And I don't know, you probably can't tell it just to watch it, but I am putting a little bit more force in the cuts, but not really a whole lot. I think we will leave that for the dogs there. Cut through that, cut through that, pull that bone off, and then this part right here, like I said, that's the end of the tendons, and then also it's been sitting out in the cooler, and so it's dried out, and so that makes that a little bit tougher to cut through. That's the front part of the shank. And we'll get the back part of the shank. And we will cook those up for the dogs. Okay, so you know, both edges are still sharp, which you would expect them to be just doing that little bit of work. Now my hand's cold, you know, because that meat's been in the meat locker, so I can't really feel quite as much. I think we lost a little bit back in here when we hit the bone. We lost a little bit on this one, but not quite as much. Yeah, I mean, they're both ready to finish out the rest of the deer. So I don't think that there's any difference in edge retention at all. But, like I said, the only difference that I could really tell on that, which I'm really kind of surprised, is that that 6,000 grit edge needed a little bit more pressure to make the cuts, whereas the 325, you know, as long as I used a slicing type motion, made the cuts with an awful lot less force. Now, you know, I think I could tell the difference, like if I had, you know, like let's say I sharpened 3 of them and then, you know, handed them to Vance and so if Vance sharpened 2 of them and then handed one to me without me knowing what grit edge was on there, I could tell the difference. I really could. Now it's not that big of a difference that, like I said, I mean, I've been kind of getting used to that 6,000 grit edge, and you know, if I couldn't have my 325 grit edge, you know, I could work with that the rest of my days and it would be okay. I still like that very, you know, aggressive toothy edge that 325 has got though. But like I said, that's just personal preference. You guys, you would have to do the same test and decide for yourself which one that you liked, or run both of them, you know. I run, you know, every day on my pocket knife, it has a 325 grit edge. and then on my my belt knife it has a 6,000 grit edge, and you know, it works good for both of them. You know, if you've got to cut through an awful lot of rope or like webbing or tarps or anything like that, grab that 325 grit edge. If you have got a couple of hairs in your mustache, or you know, one going, you know, turning and kind of going up your nose or something, and you need to, you know, shave a little bit on your face, grab that 6,000 grit edge knife, strop it a little bit on your palm, and then you know, you can shave your entire face with a 6,000 grit edge, and it's a little bit on the rough side, but it's not too bad, and especially for touch-ups, it's really, really good. So anyway, so that is the 325 grit edge versus a 6,000 grit edge on boning knives and mule deer shoulders video. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.